So today we're starting lesson 7.1 on equations. It's going to be a little bit so far of an extension on the last chapter that we've done on expressions, although this one's going to be pretty easy. So here's the warm-up that you guys are going to do in your notebook. So everybody should have easily gotten these warm-ups, right? They were pretty simple. So let's see. I want Anita. What's the answer for the first one? The answer is 7. Alinza, what's the answer for the second one? So the answer is 10. This was pretty easy mental math, but I want to show you guys very quickly the way that we can do this as proper students. Now, most of you did this with mental math, but I want to show you the actual mathematical concept behind it. So I want you guys to answer me this. Is 10 equal to 10? Yes. Is -2 equal to -2? Yes. So these are both equal to one another. So here's what we did to solve it. This is actually what you guys did in your mental math. So here, to cancel out a 2, we have to take away 2, right? To get to 0, you have $2, you have to spend $2. But what you do to one side, and look, this is just our same thing. -2 is equal to -2, correct? Awesome. So what we're doing right now, and you've heard this term before, is called isolating the variable. What is 2 minus 2, Alinza?
0.
2 minus 2 is 0. It goes away. It would be 0 plus x. Doesn't matter. We just leave x. What is 9 minus 2, Malia? 9 minus 2 is 7. Hey, let's look back. This gives us x equals 7. Here, we have x equals 7. Let's look at this next one. We have g minus 7 equals 3. What number in this equation are we trying to get rid of? Which number in this equation are we trying to get rid of, Romario? Yeah, that -7. We want to isolate the g. So I want you guys to repeat me. Isolate the variable.
Isolate the variable.
And what does isolate mean again? Rocco?
I don't know how to explain it.
What does it mean, Tobias? Raphael, how do you isolate it? What does isolate mean?
Isolate means keeping something away.
It means keeping something away, keeping something alone. So when we isolate a variable, we want to get it alone. So remember, in our last lesson, we learned we always have to include the operation in front of our number. We always have to include the operation in front of our number. So how do I get rid of a -7? How do I make that into a 0? How do I make a -7 equal to 0, Romario? I do what? Yeah, I'm going to add 7 to it. But what I do to one side, so I add 7 to both sides. -7 plus 7. -7 plus 7. What does that equal, Jenna? -7 plus 7 is not 10. -7 plus 7, Lucy? It is 0. It goes away. So I am left with g equals. And what is 3 plus 7? Alinza, what is 3 plus 7? 10. And hey, let's look back. We got g equal to 10. This is the mathematical way that you do this. What you are doing is you are doing inverse operations. It's called inverse operations. Remember, we've done inverse before. Inverse is reciprocals, but this is in terms of inverse operations. Yes, Daniel? It is, except in further math. Yes, you do. So, equation. It literally gives you the definition right above. So it's right there. Who can give me an example of an equation? Hannah? 3 plus 2. Is that an equation?
Yes.
No, it is not. It needs an equal sign. Equals 5. Technically, yeah, that is an expression. We could also replace it with an x, because an expression has to have an unknown. So it would be x minus 2 is an expression, because we don't know what x stands for. So how are an equation and an expression similar? What do they both contain? Yes, Daniel. Yeah, they both have numbers. What else do they have, Anita?
Variable.
They also have variables. But how are they different? There's one thing that makes them different. Oswaldo? Exactly. An equation has an equal sign and an expression does not. How can we remember that an equation has an equal sign, Rocco?
Equal.
Yeah, equa! Because we're making things equal. So, here's another warm-up. Write this in your notebook. You need to write and solve the equation. So let's read this together. The total cost of a pair of skates and knee pads is $63. The skates cost $45. How much are the knee pads? Now, what's the first keyword? We basically have one keyword in this sentence. What is our key word, Raphael?
How much?
How much? That is a good guess, but what's our key word, Oswaldo? Total. When we see that word total, we know it means equals. We know our word total means equals. So we're going to have an equal sign here. So, Ben, what is the equation you have on your piece of paper?
On my piece of paper, I have like 43 plus x equals 63.
43 plus x equals 63.
Or 45.
Do we agree with him?
Or
It's 45. This is what happens when you don't have out a piece of paper. So,
paper.
excellent. Now, we could obviously use mental math, but sometimes it's a little bit harder when our numbers get bigger. So we want to isolate the variable. Okay, I'm going to call on Oswaldo. Let's isolate this variable. How do we do that?
63 minus 45.
Yeah, so we're going to do a minus 45 on each side. Notice how this one right here has negative 45 equals negative 45. That's just a true statement, right? Math always has to follow true statements. So 45 minus 45 goes away, and we're left with x equals. And then what is 63 minus 45? What is 63 minus 45? Jaden. Okay, instead, I would like Romario for the answer. 18. Excellent. So we get our x equals 18. So that's how much total she spent on the knee pads. So here's our last warm-up that we're doing. 16 divided by x equals 8. 16 divided by x equals 8. Okay, Matthew, what's the answer?
2.
2. Exactly. We can easily do this with mental math. Now, this one I'm a little bit more hesitant to show you the method for, but here's the proof. Just watch as I do this. So, it's a little confusing. First of all, 16 divided. We have to do the opposite of the operation. The operation we see is the divided by x. What's the opposite of divided by x, Hannah? Multiplication. Times x is equal to times x. Same thing on both sides. Multiplied by x is equal to multiplied by x. Those go away. What is 8 multiplied by x then? What is 8 multiplied by x? Hannah? 8 multiplied by x. 8x. So then we get, like I said, it's a little bit more work. 16 is equal to 8x. This is times, as we know, so we have to divide by our number. How do we get rid of that 8, Ben?
Wait. Do you divide or?
Perfect. So we're going to divide by 8. We do that on both sides. Divide by 8. 16 divided by 8, we get 2. That goes away. We get x equals 2. This one was a little bit more convoluted, but I'm just going to give you an example. You don't need to write this down, but I'm going to give you an example of why we would be needing this method. So if we looked at this problem, it'd be a lot harder to do with mental math, right? Not super hard, but harder than the other ones. There's 2 ways we could go about it. We could do our original negative 10 equals negative 10. Those go away. We get 30 equals 2x. This is multiplication, so we do division. Divided by 2. Divided by 2, we get x equals 15. The other way that we could do this is by factoring. What's the greatest common factor for this 2x plus 10? What's the greatest common factor, Daniel? 2. We pull out a 2. We get x plus 5 equals 40. Here it's 2 times. We divide by 2 on each side. That means we get x plus 5 is equal to 20. We want to isolate that. We do negative 5 is equal to negative 5. Those go away. 20 minus 5 is 15. Again, we would get x equals 15. In future math, this method will very much help, I promise. So, go to page 515 and do A, B, C, D, and E. Now, you don't necessarily need to use my method for this now, but it's just good to know of it. Let's do our mental math. First problem, Ben, solve.
C plus 8 equals 13. It would be 5.
Perfect. C would be 5. Excellent. As we know, 13 minus 8 is 5. Next one. 9 minus x equals 2. 9 minus x equals 2. Let's see. Alinza. 7. 40 minus c equals 31. Tobias. 9. 4n equals 16. Melanie. 4. Excellent. And then last, 24 divided by w equals 8. Adriana. 3. Great job. This is pretty simple mental math that we're doing. To the guided practice numbers 1 through 6, you must show me before you go on to your homework. For homework, you do page 517, numbers 1 through 13.